I work for Literacy Nova Scotia, and Literacy Nova Scotia is an umbrella organization of individuals and organizations who are interested in adult learning and adult literacy opportunities for Nova Scotians, obviously. The learners who come to our programs are adults who want to improve their education, and often what happens to those folks is that they don't have access to really good, really well-written materials to read that are at the level at which they are functioning right at the moment. So I'm very, very excited to tell you about a new program, a new series of books that has been published by ABC Life Literacy Canada and Grassroots Press, called Goodreads.
This book, it's about somebody who was, he felt that there were people sort of spreading rumors, picking on him and so on. He was the son of immigrants, and what he decided to do, as a form of revenge, he decided to do the same thing. The fellas, the people he felt who had been picking on him, he kind of spread some rumors about them. And it led to some bad results, and the second half of the book deals with him trying to remedy that situation. Just 2 weeks after my family moved to Ajax, the narrator he's a 16-year-old high school student. I saw my parents glued to the television. At first I thought they were watching a movie. People were rushing out from a tunnel. A man in a heavy coat led out a lady looking like what looked like a gas mask. It was caked with thick white dust. I wondered what the lady's face looked like behind the mask. Was she crying, or were her eyes closed in fright? Then the scene shifted to a red double-decker bus. So you know it's not in Nova Scotia or in Canada. It seemed to have been smashed with a giant hammer. There's nothing sadder than smoke, my father said, because it always marks the end of something. Dad usually spoke like this, quoting the dead poet Shakespeare, or saying things that only he could understand. Mom placed a finger against her lip to silence Dad. On the television, a woman was sitting on the pavement. Why wasn't she running away with everyone else? Then the camera focused on a small body beside her. I waited for commercial to come on before I asked, what's going on? Why is this happening? In faraway London, Mom said in a sad voice, terrorists have bombed 3 subway trains and that bus. After a while, she added, what's happening is madness. Can something like that happen here? Alison, my sister, asked. My mother looked through the balcony door. I wondered if she was considering all the places she had lived. First of all, Uganda, in Africa, where she had grown up and then met and married Dad. Then Australia. She and Dad had moved there after the mean ruler of Uganda and his army had destroyed their homes and businesses of all their friends. Then Fredericton, a town in New Brunswick. I was almost going to say, just kind of improvise and say Sydney or something like that. Close to the east coast of Canada. But that'd be dishonest. Both Alison and I were born there. And those of you who buy the books would realize. Then after 7 years, napping in Ontario, where Dad got a job at a mill. And finally here, Ajax, a town to the east of Toronto. Who knows there, Mom said finally, as if speaking to herself. But not here, not in Ajax. During the following weeks, I got a good idea why my parents felt so comfortable in this small little town. Everything seemed so squeezed together. We could walk to the library, the hospital, the school, the lake, and the shopping malls. Everyone seemed to know each other, and the parks were usually crowded with old people walking about or chatting on benches. One of the things I was talking with Anne-Marie about before was I mentioned the difference between New Brunswick when I went to university here and places like Toronto. In New Brunswick, everyone seemed to have known each other, and there was a kind of small community feel about the place, Fredericton and Nashwaaksis and so on, that you miss in places in Toronto where everyone is so busy and so caught up in their own little world and cloistered in small little groups. If there's anyone here from Toronto, I apologize. No one is ashamed of their past here, she said. No one in the small little town. She felt that Canada was the perfect place in the world, the most perfect place. all the bad things happen elsewhere. She pointed this out to Dad whenever he began talking of his boyhood in Uganda. Dad would answer that his people were nomads. His great-great-grandfather had moved from India to Uganda, and he and Mom had moved to Australia. And whenever Mom asked him to stop talking about that, he would say everything is temporary. I really hoped that he was wrong and that our stay in Ajax would be permanent. I was sad when we moved from Fredericton because I had to leave all my friends behind. Ajax was different. Yet only 5 months after we moved to Ajax, Alison, my sister, told me something terrible. Our parents, she said, were thinking of moving once more. She hoped they would pick, Toronto. Thanks.